Hello, I'm Kurt Lidke, Executive Director of Klamath Film, and you just watched That Week Each Year, a heartfelt documentary about an annual youth camp for kids dealing with a very specific medical issue. With us is the film's director, Lynnette Oostmeyer. Lynnette, thank you for joining us. I hope I said your last name correctly.
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah, we've both probably been called a lot worse in our day.
Yeah.
So, how did you hear about this particular youth camp, and what made you want to create a film about it, documenting its impact?
Yeah, so I actually heard about Camp Oasis when I was a kid because I also have inflammatory bowel disease and was sponsored to go when I was about 13 years old. Now I'm older. I was working on my master's thesis program and looking for a community to work on films with, and realized that there was a camp up in Washington. So I was able to go and spend the whole week shooting photos and videos and interviewing the kids. And yeah, it was a really great opportunity.
So, based on your own personal experience, you can speak to what kind of an impact this camp has for kids who are dealing with a situation that can be uncomfortable, especially around peers who may not understand it. I'm sure there's kids could be very easily, ridiculed for having this kind of problem if people don't understand it and comprehend it. So, how did it help you, and what made you want to turn around and make a film about it?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I didn't hadn't even met anybody with this disease until I went to camp. It's 20 years later now, and I'm talking to the new group of youth, and they're all saying the same thing. Like I'm from a rural town in Idaho, and I've never met another kid with Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, and like bringing that community together and seeing them all learn from each other and be able to open up and feel free to express, just being a kid or being a sick kid or whatever they want to express. It was a really, really beautiful week.
So, working with kids in film can sometimes be tricky. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's extraordinarily difficult. Was this a tough project in terms of trying to coordinate shots, or did you largely just kind of stay in the shadows and capture whatever was happening around you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge was I have 1 week. So if I mess it up, then I have no way of going back. But I got really lucky with the kids that I chose to focus on, that they were really cooperative and really willing to kind of pretend that I wasn't there and just do what they normally do. But yeah, it definitely had its challenging moments, but I got very, very lucky with the group of people that I was talking to.
Terrific. So, having attended this camp when you were a kid and now coming back as an adult, was the experience different from the outside looking in?
Yeah, it was funny because when you're a kid, you steer towards hanging out with all the kids and learning from them. And as an adult going in, all of the volunteers and the counselors and the nurses are all in that IBD world too. So either they have it themselves or they're family members of somebody who has experienced that. So it was like almost the same. I still got to be around people my age who had the same illness, the same, life experience, but just 20 years later. So it was cool.
Did that help you gain a greater appreciation for those that put on camps like this? Not just specifically this one, but just, I mean, there's all kinds of different camps that are put on to help kids.
Yeah, there should be one for everything you could possibly imagine. Like every kid should go to summer camp in whatever form. If they love sports or art, or if they have some kind of illness and they want that camaraderie, whatever it is, just getting you in a group in your community to hang out for an entire week and just be yourself is really, really cool.
So this is one of many youth camps that are held every summer across Oregon. Some deal with things like coping with grief, or learning a specific skill. Like Climate Film actually just hosted a summer youth camp teaching middle school and high school kids how to make films, which was great. But I'm glad that you made this film because it sheds light on a subject that, especially with kids in and around schools, can create a lot of potential problems where kids can be made fun of if peers don't understand this infliction. So, what do you hope that people learn from this film, especially if any kids get to watch it?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with kids, they feel very alone when they do have an illness. So I hope that this film would push people to find your community, whatever community that is. if you go and you interact with them and you find your people, it's going to teach you so much about yourself and so much about opening yourself up to other people. Yeah, finding that group is just really, really important.
So inevitably, with any film production, even the most serious of films has lighter moments, and I'm sure working with kids, there were some unusual things. Even though you tell them don't look into the camera, pretend like I'm not really here, still, kids especially get fixated on the lens. So any sort of bloopers, lighter moments, really memorable moments that maybe didn't make the film.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of bloopers during the big dancing scene, like kids dancing ways they shouldn't be dancing in front of, younger kids and stuff like that. But no, generally it all went really well. I always bring a Polaroid camera so that when there's that one kid who won't stop playing with my camera, I can give him that. Go do this. Go take pictures of your friends while I'm focusing on what I'm trying to do. So there's tricks to working with kids.
Right, right, right. So what other have you worked on similar projects to this in the past, and what do you have coming up next?
Yeah, so this was actually part of my master's thesis project, which is all surrounding people with inflammatory bowel disease. So I did multiple videos. There's another girl who's a race car driver. She does dirt car racing. So I did a big project with her. But yeah, I love telling stories in this community, and I definitely want to keep expanding on that.
So you're thinking that now that school is wrapping up with your master thesis, that this is a career pursuit for you.
I mean, documentary film for sure. I've been a photojournalist for about 10 years now. So documentary is just in my blood at this point, and I love working with that community. So I'll always do other things too, but I think I'll always have one of those stories kind of on the burner somewhere.
Is there one that's on the to-do list or on the wish list that you want to try to tackle next?
I think finishing the race car video. I started that when I first started shooting short films, so I had a lot to learn still. But now that girl is back racing because there's less restrictions, so I'm hoping to go do a lot more work with her and get that to a really solid short film.
Terrific. Any aspect of this camp that didn't make the final cut that you would want people to know?
Um, I don't know. I wish I could have talked to every single kid, but that's just not how it works. All of them have a great story, and they're all so willing to help each other. Like there was one little boy who was just getting really homesick, and all of his friends like could see that he was like tearing up and getting, just kind of sad, and they would all come and hug him and walk down the roads together and like really try to lift each other up. And I do think you get to see that in the film, but to really, really lean into that, just how much the kids care about each other, and they might have only known each other for 2 days, and they're willing to, be that kind to each other. So it's really special.
Any takeaways that you hope people get out of your film?
I guess just everybody has stuff going on that you can't always see, and I mean a lot of them are invisible illnesses, and you don't really know what people are dealing with, and especially after this last year and a half, like just being kind to each other and giving each other some grace, because it's been a wild ride for sure.
And did you film this during the pandemic? Because that adds a whole other level to what is already an incredibly difficult process of filmmaking, of trying to figure out how to film during COVID. So
Yeah, no, it was before. So I finished up the project about a month or two before COVID, like the lockdown happened. But unfortunately, the kids have not been able to be at camp for the last 2 summers because of the medications that they take. They're very immune compromised. So they've done virtual camps and still had a chance to interact with each other. But fingers crossed, next year they all get to be there together again.
yeah, if a year from now we're still wearing these things, just shoot me, because
Yeah.
we've we've all kind of suffered to an extent. Well, Lynette,
Yeah.
Lynette, thank you so much for your film and for joining us. We really appreciate it. That week each year will be screened on Sunday, September 19th at 1 p.m. in our Northern Shorts category of the Klamath Independent Film Festival, and available all week on demand. So thank you, Lynette, for this wonderful film.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.